Hey folks, welcome back to another episode. This one's a little off the cuff. I was at a social gathering at a friend's. I met this individual. We started having a conversation as I was inquiring what he did, how he got started, and the conversation went so interesting that I stopped, asked him if we could record it, and he was open to that. And this is that raw version of a conversation and story from a gentleman named Chris Koski. I hope you find his story interesting. This is the beginning of another episode we're going to be doing as a follow-up because this individual has some great experience and can offer great insight. I found it absolutely fascinating, as I do in discussing and talking with human beings. I still remain so curious. I hope you enjoy this episode, folks. Bear with the raw content, and thanks for listening. Thanks for listening. If you like the candid discussion and are seeking the truth behind the mainstream narrative, then please subscribe and share. Not only am I grateful, but those who seek the truth and wish to empower themselves and their family's health, freedoms, and future will also be grateful. And as he's making Earth move for the betterment of humankind. Literally, on the interstate, he's been managing projects, and he knows Donald Trump. Yep, some people don't want to say that word, but it's brilliant, and Chris enjoys it as well. So he's going to give us a little history, as he's a graduate and alum of Oregon University.
University of Oregon.
The Ducks.
Yep, I'm a Duck.
So tell us a little bit about your history and when you were there.
Okay, so I started in the year 2000, and I was studying environmental engineering out there. And it was a protracted degree because I would work in the summertime for 6 months and in the fall and build bridges and roads, and then I'd go to school in the winter and the spring. So it took me 6 years to get a 4-year degree, but in that time I got to see some great stuff. So George Bush was president back then, and we were just kind of talking before this. There was an event where we were talking about Antifa and this whole kind of uprising that we're seeing right now. And Antifa actually originated in Portland, Oregon back in about 2000, maybe 98 or so. And I don't remember the dude's name anymore. He's real famous or infamous, but so it was called Earth Liberation Front, or ELF. That's what Antifa used to be called. And he made himself famous by lighting 97 SUVs on fire one night in Eugene, Oregon. It was Lithia Chevrolet. And it actually caught some businesses on fire, and I think somebody died, so it was a real bad deal. I don't know if it was just property loss. I think there was loss of life as well. Anyway, it was the first conviction ever in the history of the United States of an American citizen on American soil for domestic terrorism. This dude is now serving a prison sentence, if I remember correctly. It was like 60 years to life or something like that. They really hung him. But they didn't catch him for a long time. The FBI was after him for like 4 or 5 years. The whole time I was in college there, they were always looking for this dude. I'm really sad I can't remember his name, but they actually caught him when the G12 summit happened in Canada. What's the big town in Canada? Just over on the west coast. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Vancouver, Canada. G12, probably the year 2006, if I had to guess. Homeboy rappels off the side of a building like the federal courthouse and posts up on a ledge out there. And they starved him out for like 6 or 7 days or something like that. And then they finally took him into custody, and then they took him to court. And so the punchline of the story is all of the stuff that you're seeing today with Antifa had its genesis back in Eugene. And I'll just ask you, all of you sense-making, sense-thinking people, let me ask you a question. What kind of environmental degradation happens when you light 97 SUVs on fire? Do you know what that smoke looks like? It's black as night. The plastics, the petroleum, all of the heavy metals, all the rare earth minerals that burn up to the sky in that time. And for what? And that's where we are today.
Destruction.
Yep. It's just burning to burn, killing to kill. There's no end game except for to cause disruption. And it's actually seeking what the goal is, to get an absolute table turning. Doesn't matter if you have to burn the whole thing to the ground, so long as the table ends up on the other side when you're done. These people will fight at any means to the end goal, which is to change what you have right now, which is the freedom of choice and the freedom to do the job that you like to do in the way that you like to do it, worship the way you feel you need to. If you love your country, you can fly an American flag. And if you got a big family, you buy a big car. For God's sake, get them where they're going. And what is wrong with that?
Freedom of choice, personal health freedoms, freedom to pursue, to pursue the desire.
Life, liberty, and prosperity, I believe is what they say.
For whom?
Everybody.
Everybody.
That's right.
Awesome, Chris. That was good. That was awesome history from Chris.
True story.
That took less than 5 minutes to share that detail.
I got about 180 of those.
You want another one you want to share?
Yeah.
You want to tell us a story about just 4 years ago when you were asked to step on stage as a project manager?
Yep.
Chris has got some great insight. He's a young strapper with a great position. He was asked to present on behalf of Donald Trump, recent elect Donald Trump, about 4 years ago.
Yep. 2 years. 2 years ago.
2 years ago.
Yep.
And so he was put on the spot as a young leader to present his plan. So tell us about that.
So, easily the strangest week of my life, without a doubt. But it all started, so I was the first project manager on what they were calling the largest project in the history of the world. It's called Foxconn. It's a $10 billion project, and we were supposed to build 80 acres worth of building. 20 million square feet worth of building. And it was on a 1,000 acre site. Anyhow, that's all not that important, but they came to me, they being the Secret Service or the presidents, like the White House people. He was going to come and he was going to do the ribbon cutting ceremony and the groundbreaking ceremony, and they wanted to have some local people. And the goal was to talk about what have you seen in the way of jobs coming to Wisconsin, let alone the United States of America. And so me being the first PM for this project, I was moving 6 million yards of earth in under 5 months. And so I hired about 125 people, and many of them had never had jobs in the construction industry before. And they wanted to focus on that. What kind of people have you hired that did something different, but now they're in the construction field, which is a job that Foxconn has brought to town?
So are you telling me that they were looking for diversity within your own industry?
Yep.
To hire diverse individuals that hadn't done that kind of work to
Correct.
do this work for expertise?
Yeah. A mom that grew up 3 kids. She had been a stay-at-home mom. Her name was Dawn Wallace. And so I wrote a bio for her. So the directive was, give me 5 people who you've hired that you think fit this notion. And it's not a narrative, it's a truth. Dawn Wallace had been a stay-at-home mom. She was 37 years old. She had never even turned the key on a piece of heavy equipment, and I had her in an 80,000-pound haul truck.
Oh my God!
Moving 27 cubic yards of dirt per load.
Dude,
you know?
That's fantastic. So, this is real.
So I wrote 5 bios, and there was Dawn Wallace. Sylvia was her name. She had grown up. They were all Racine County. We wanted to focus on what kind of people have you found work for from Racine County, really bringing it home. This Foxconn is good for not just Wisconsin, but Racine County. And so there was another lady. Her name was Celia Griffin, and she was an African-American lady, and she had a brief experience in construction she was an elevator operator in one of those high-rise temporary construction elevators that would bring goods up and down the floors. Anyway, I got Celia out there. She was in a haul truck too. And then Dawn Wallace actually ended up in a D10 dozer pushing scrapers, which is a baller job. I've never seen a woman even start one of those machines, let alone push them. So
baller meaning good, by the way.
Baller's
she's
good.
a baller, man. That's awesome.
Yeah.
She's doing the do.
So, at the end of the day, it's a Saturday. I'm spending my Saturday writing the bios of 4 or 5 people, and I said, you know what, you can't win if you don't play. And so I wrote my own bio. And I gave them a 6th candidate. And I said, my name is Chris Koski. I'm the first project manager of Foxconn. It's the largest construction project in the world right now. And what makes it interesting for me is I am the first guy to start building something that's going to bring 30,000 manufacturing jobs back to the United States of America. Let's rewind for a second in Chris Koski's life. He grew up on the Iron Range of Minnesota. And by the age of 10 years old, he had seen the Iron Range basically go depleted in its raw ore. And he watched the total destitution that ensued of an entire region. All of my friends, there were only 2 rich people in town left, the car dealer and the grocery store owner. Everybody else was in a state of absolute destitution. My parents were both ministers, and so we were just kind of right there in the middle of things trying to help everybody hold it together and find meaning. Well, you lose your daddy's job that you got trained to do. I mean, 6, 7 generations of people. And so watching that die at the age of 10 and watching the poverty and destitution up there, I'm a real empathetic person. And I basically said in my mind, in my heart, that'll never be me. And I don't know yet how I'm going to solve that, but that'll never be me. I'm not going to link myself and my career to a resource-based, finite resource-based function where I might fail because it comes to its end. Okay, fast forward, Dad got a job with a different church in Appleton, Wisconsin. That's where we moved. I was 14 years old. I moved to Appleton. It's an affluent area. We had plenty of manufacturing jobs in that town. Everybody had food on the table there. It was a good, healthy place to live and grow up. If I remember correctly, we didn't all graduate, but 80% of my graduating class at least took some time in higher education. Almost everybody went to college or to tech school or some other kind of further focusing of, I'm not just going to go to do a menial job, I'm going to go to a focused thing because it meant something to me. Right about that time is when NAFTA passed. And so for the first time, I saw all of these manufacturing jobs get shipped to the maquiladoras of Mexico and to Taiwan and Indonesia.
How old were you?
I was, at that time, about 16 years old, and I was able to really focus at that point.
Not quite able to drive yet, but getting ready.
Yep. And watching this, I started watching my friends' parents lose their job again, and it did the same thing in my heart. I'm an empathetic person, and it made me hurt. I would sob sometimes at night because I knew my friends didn't have dinner, and I knew who they were, and I knew that I couldn't really do much about it. But once again, that self-preservation and that just general angst from the inside rose up inside of me, and I said, that'll never be me. And so by the time I was 18 years old, I knew that the one thing I was passionate about, which is cranes and bulldozers and track hoses and other crap like that, if I became a bridge engineer, there's no way they could ship my bridge to India, have it built there, and then ship it back to us, right? If I become a bridge builder, I would go to the place in Wisconsin where the bridge was being built, and I would get to have my job. And I knew that would be a good-paying job, a living wage salary, and I would have a decent living. And if the dude from India or if the gal from India wanted to come over and go toe-to-toe with me on that project or that job, then the best man or woman wins, right? I had no problem with rising to the top of my profession. I just didn't want my whole profession to get shipped overseas. That's not good. So,
good logic.
I wrote that in 500 words or less under Chris Koski, project manager, Foxconn, and the president and his people said, yep, it's Celia and Dawn and you.
Wow.
And in 2 days' time, you're going to be up on stage with President Donald Trump, and he may or may not call you up on stage. But as a terrible, oh God, it was humiliating. I didn't say any of that, by the way, folks. I didn't say any of it. I don't know what I said. It was all a blur. But It can
YouTube, right?
it can be searched on YouTube if you type in President Trump groundbreaking speech at Foxconn, FOXCONN.
And we will have the link below.
At 38 minutes, you can see Celia and Dawn, and then finally myself come out and say a little bit about what it was like to work at Foxconn. The punchline here, guys, is that this is the only man I've ever seen bring jobs back to this country. I've seen spigot opened and a hemorrhaging of commerce and utility from this country that I don't think anyone else is really aware of. But we have a chance to actually start competing again on the world market for manufacturing and production of products. And if that could happen, you know that we have this is the disappearing blue-collar class. That's where it comes from. These jobs are high-paying jobs. The median annual salary is $54,000. If you and your wife work there, you got $100,000. You can raise kids like this. And you work 40 hours a week and you go home. You can pay for childcare while you're gone. You don't have to just wonder what your kids are doing. It's where we're supposed to go.
It's beautiful. I got a couple questions for you. I was having a conversation with another businessman who is from Canada, and he runs, he's a COO for a company whom I hope to interview eventually. But what I found fascinating in this conversation was, of the three things, in talking with this individual, we talked about jobs coming to the U.S. And he said, we said, what about the wages? We'll pay the wages, no problem. We have no problem with the wages.
Right.
What about the manufacturing? We have no problem with manufacturing laws. We have no problem with costs.
EPA, fine, no problem.
What's the problem?
I know the answer. It's a backwards answer. President Trump is the only man I've ever seen stand up for this country and actually charge tariffs on imported goods the way that tariffs are supposed to work. Tariffs are not your enemy. Tariffs.
Explain a tariff for those that don't know.
When it costs $20 to build a widget in the United States of America because you can't pump the toxic waste down the wellhead and pollute the whole aquifer, and you have to pay people a living wage, and you have to have a health care plan and maybe even a child care plan, and so it costs $20 per widget. What tariffs do is everybody knows that we could build that widget in China or Indonesia for 18 cents. Everybody knows that. But what's happening over there? People are living in toxic squalor, poverty. They're poisoned by their own environment. Their children have no food. They're making no health care whatsoever. You've never seen health care in your whole life. And here's a weird one. Your average ounceage of protein per month is on the order of 7 ounces of protein per month. We eat like 7 ounces of protein per day, even if they're soybeans, right? Or legumes or quinoa, superfood. Everybody should eat quinoa. It wouldn't matter what it was. You're talking about 7 ounces of protein per month. That's what kind of a life that widget is buying the person who made the widget. And here we are with our iPhones or whatever widget you want to talk about. Or Nikes, yes, absolutely. And all of the waste from that product is dumping straight into the river, and it's flowing downstream, by the way. So when you buy farm-raised Indonesian shrimp that's born in an estuary and farmed down there at the base of the whatever delta, you're eating all of that toxic waste. Heavy metals like mercury, molybdenum, all of these toxic things that are bad for your body. Don't eat that stuff. Know where your meat comes from, because it's a whole cycle. There's a whole world built on top of it. By the way, it's called globalization, just so you know.
Time out. Perfect spot. This is not a healthcare provider. This is not a environmental biologist. This is a guy with experience. He's a project manager, but he's also cultured and conscious. So, folks, if you think you have to be those degrees to understand this and realize that toxic food is the machine, then you're crazy. This guy's spitting it out like he's a scientist.
I am.
You are a scientist.
Yeah.
He's spitting it out like he's a scientist, but not the kind of scientist you guys think he is.
I got a bachelor's in environmental engineering with minors in biology, geology, and geography, and I got a master's degree in civil engineering.
So there was a little motivation behind not getting screwed by a one pony show.
Absolutely. Yep. Okay, so winding it back into the, why do you buy the widget? All right, so what tariffs do? And Trump is the only one, I'll go back again, Trump is the only person I've ever seen stand up hard against trade. Global trade, free trade agreements will never be good for you as an American citizen, ever. They have no notion of nationality. I'll give the aquifer analogy again. Okay, so the United States of America, because you were born here, or if you weren't born here and you want to come here, path to citizenship legally, we're going to have water, and that'll be a coming war. We're sitting on the largest aquifer in the world. It's called the Ogallala Aquifer. It's got trillions and trillions of gallons of fresh water. I feel like I'm getting on a tangent here, but that's
you're coming around to tariffs, which is perfect. So
I will.
This backdrop is good.
Yep.
Keep
so
going. You're doing great.
So I'm going to talk about free trade, and then I'm going to talk about tariffs, and then I'm going to talk about your own national asset, which is called a resource, a natural resource. All right. So if we sign these agreements, there's an agreement in the original one. It's like 1973, the GATS agreement, the General Agreement on Trades and Tariffs. And there was a chapter in there called anti-harmonization. And basically, if you sign that agreement, you are not able to be anti-harmonious. What does that mean? If a country that's signatory to that agreement wants to come and get all of the water out of the Ogallala Aquifer, you cannot stop them. Not as a governor, not as a president, not as a citizen. It's not yours. You are signing away the right to a sovereign resource, to a trade agreement where any country can come in and unmitigatedly suck that water out at any rate they want. We can't even put a cap on 1 trillion gallons a year or something like that. They can come and just suck it gone, we can't stop them as they please. So I don't think that's good, because I got to be born on top of the aquifer. We suck that aquifer out and it waters that corn right now, right? So back to tariffs, the General Agreement on Trades and Tariffs. Okay, this was all about eroding Trump's ability to make a tariff, to place a tariff. So if he wanted to say, screw you and your widget, I know you can build it for 18 cents, but I'm going to put a $19.72 tariff on each individual widget. Why would he do $19.70? Because he knows it takes $20 for us to make it. And so at least he's giving the American consumer the right and the option to buy an American widget versus a foreign widget. And we're all idiots if we're not doing that. And the thing that's killing us is buying foreign.
Interesting.
It's killing our economy.
And what are we taught in schools about buying foreign? What does it nobilize?
When I was in school, it was still a bad deal. But nowadays, I'm sure I don't know what they even say.
The concept that I continue to hear is that you're taking jobs away from foreigners.
Oh, yes.
Versus
right.
actually keeping jobs here in the U.S. To me, it makes sense to feed your own family first to be able to help your neighbor.
The agricultural and industrial revolutions took agrarian societies from the countryside that were there for centuries. All of those Chinese people were growing rice, and they had a few goats, and they had a few chickens, and they had a few, they were making it work, and they had damn for sure more than 7 ounces of protein per month. It was a shit life, and you had to work hard, but you had you were in charge of your own fate and your own destiny.
Yes.
You farm it, you raise it, you harvest it, and you eat it. That's what agrarianism got you. When the Industrial Revolution came along, they sold this bill of goods to all of these poor farmers, and they said, hey, you serfs, you people with bare feet out there in that field, we have paying jobs over here. We'll pay you $2 a week. And they're like, oh, my God, we don't make $2 a month. That would be better for us. Well, so they all picked up, and they all went, and they all lived in squalor and boxes and the things that you see today, these shanty towns that can still be seen from across the border into El Paso, Texas. You look into the Maquiladora. By the way, the Maquiladora is a border zone that is tariff-free, that we made just for NAFTA that said, okay, it's not Mexico and it's not the United States, but Mexican people can come in here. It's not crossing the border. And American goods can be made, and we'll pay Mexican people low wages with no environmental protection or health and human safety protection. And it's kind of the best of the both worlds. And somehow it's like, what we're going to get it out of them because they're used to living in shit, you know? It was one of the weirdest things, but anyway, look it up.
How is that humane, folks?
It's not.
How is that humane?
It's incredible. Look it up. Maquia, I think it's Maquidora. And it's a heck of a story. It's really interesting. And there's areas like that all over the world.
And that was facilitated by the Clinton administration.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Clinton passed NAFTA.
Keeping him on the farm.
Yep. So with that said, where were we headed just then?
You were touching on tariffs.
Tariffs, yep. So the reason, I think I've sealed that one shut.
Was great.
Clinton will ask for $19.72 for a $20 widget.
Clinton will?
I'm sorry.
It's okay, we'll edit
good
that.
God, yeah. Edit that one out.
Got it.
So the punchline is we can build it for 20, a widget for 20 here, and living wages and EPA standards, and they can build it for 18 cents. And so a tariff is put in place to say, American people, please value your
safety.
own lifestyle.
Yeah, and safety.
Don't buy the widget when you know it's wrecking things that are far away. And it's hard to think about.
It's wrecking their life.
It's wrecking their
your life as well.
It's wrecking our lives because we're selling our own.
You just opened up the door to Amazon.
That is Amazon. That's how they work.
So nobody wants you to know this, folks, but the reality is, because you're not going to be told this on the mainstream media. You're not told how to behave. You're told to shop for the lowest rate, and when they keep you strapped into the nines.
Correct.
In terms of
That's exactly right.
making your life an all-out, all-the-time struggle. You make more income. You now have to meet a new tax bracket, blah, 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 greater restrictions. You're always forced to just grind. Point being, as Chris eloquently stated, the tariff aspect of getting a product made cheaper overseas is not only taking jobs from us here, but we've been sold. We have been sold as a country to the lowest bidder, and that has created many of the problems we have now. So with this globalization awareness, what Chris is putting together is a little backdrop for you to see how the dynamics of that have created the problems we're facing right now.
And again, back to being an empathetic person, my heart goes to those people. I love the people of Indonesia. I love the people of China. I got no problem with them. And I don't want to take part in the environmental destruction and squalor that is the result of this process. Filter the shit out, and whatever that costs should be intrinsically factored into the cost that we have to buy the widget for. If it's a bad, dirty widget, but I still need it, I should pay for the cradle-to-grave life cycle of whatever the bad, dirty shit was from the widget.
Is that self-accountability and self-responsibility, or is that shirking your responsibility?
It's taking the responsibility.
It's taking responsibility, absolutely. It's
I have
recognizing...
no problem paying the real cost.
Beautiful.
None.
Absolutely.
Think about the intrinsic cost of an item. That's the most important thing you could do. And in 100 years, when it's getting harder and harder to find fossil fuels, we're really going to kick our own asses for lighting all that sweet light crude on fire. When that's how you make baby incubators, that's how you make those awesome plastics that we need for space stuff, And don't get me started on the rare earth minerals, because the lanthanides, it's the second to the last row on the periodic table of the elements. That stuff is gold. And China sits on 95% of the general ore for all 14 elements, and we only have 8 elements here in the United States of America. So no matter what, we have to go get, I forget the names of all of them. We're going to have to go get some stuff someday, one of the 5 that we can't mine here, and China's going to be like, what do you need that for? We're going to make a radar. No, you're not. You're going to make a spy satellite. That's the only reason you need that shit. And they're going to say, no, you can't have it now. And so we're going to go dig up our own landfills, and we're going to go find all of the thrown away computers that we have done over time. We will be mining landfills in less than 40 years.
Yep. Agreed.
4 rare earth minerals, probably nothing else. First it'll be rare earth minerals, then it'll be all of the polyaromatic hydrocarbons, which are also known as fossil fuels.
Okay, so Chris just went way over all of our heads for that just a moment. That'll be a whole nother conversation. But
Lanthanides are riveting. You got to see it. There's magnetic fridges. You don't even plug them in.
So I think what
stuff.
he's saying, folks, is there's technology we've had withheld because it doesn't serve the purpose of those in
Totally.
politics right now. So Donald Trump, back to our current president, you may or may not like him based on his behavior, but his policies, hands down, best
They do.
time
I've
ever.
never seen a president do this.
Never.
Nope.
You don't have to like him. You don't have to love him as a person because, number one, you're painted a picture. That's not truly who it is.
Right.
He is. And who cares personality because yours is probably not that great either. But policies get
Amen.
things done, and he has gotten things done on behalf of every party involved.
It's true. It's true.
Tell me what... Tell me what you know about gold and silver.
We got to talk to Stieg about that. Buy it.
That's all. He just said two words.
Yeah.
2 words.
Buy it. The American dollar is.
Hey, by the way, he's speaking as a not investor, as a scientist who understands
that I got a little bit of money and I don't want to lose it. I mean, it's just like,
So convert it.
Right.
Convert it.
Right. Yeah, I mean, even putting money, you think you might be safe if you just say, well, I'm not even going to get into the market. I'm just going to keep cash. Even the American dollar isn't safe right now because of the things that are going on.
Okay, folks, we're going to date this right now. It is August 14th.
Yeah, they're seeking
15th today. It's August 15th. And so Chris speaks the truth here. But anyway, to be aware of the dollar ever being printed, which is actually debasing the dollar to then go into hyperinflation. He was talking about earth metals,
rare earth minerals, rare earth metals. Yeah, correct.
And there is an 8-to-1 ratio of silver 8 to gold 1 mined in terms of what we have unearthed. Right?
Correct. That's because of porphyry copper deposits, and it's hydrothermal steam happens way down below the Earth's crust, and the batholiths of hot molten magma.
Magma.
I know. I love that word. I do. No, look into porphyry copper deposits. Porphyr, porphyry copper deposits, and that's the general deposition process, geologically speaking, of all of these minerals. And the reason there's an 8-to-1 is because there's 8 times more silver in the hydrothermal fluid than there is gold in the hydrothermal fluid. So it all gets jetted into these cracks and fissures under great temperature and pressure. And as we mine them, we find copper, we find gold, we find silver, we find all of the other metals that are, all of those ones that are stuck. You just look at the periodic table. They're all sitting right next to each other. And the hydrothermal fluid story is really neat.
So tell us right off the top, not that you're an actual investing expert, which is the best part of this, geologically. What do they use gold for?
Actually, it's really big in computers. It's a weird conductor. It has some neat properties, almost like a lanthanide, almost like a rare earth. Gold is weird stuff. It has neat electrical properties. Other than that, I think it's to look at and
jewelry,
and make people beautiful. Yeah.
And it's a little soft.
Yeah, it's a little soft, malleable. Yep.
So tell me about silver. Are there a few uses for silver?
It's right next to lead on the periodic table. So it's a little dirtier just in terms of its electronic organization. Silver, I think the primary functions of silver in electronics are negligible. What do we do with
cell
that?
phones?
Cell phones, CDs, yeah, okay.
CDs, mirrors, household everyday.
Household everything.
All over the place.
Gotcha.
Cell phones.
Yep. So it's not, and people, it's not just jewelry. Is that the point?
Yes.
Like, it's not just jewelry. No, these are, if you'll where the place my brain goes when you ask me what something matters for. Why does it matter? Well, I'll tell you what processes that it's being used in. Right. This is how we live. Why does the light come on when you flip the switch? You know, and for that matter, to all you non-civil engineers, where does the poo go when you flush the toilet? You know, how come you don't get sick when you turn on that water faucet and you drink whatever comes out of it? Welcome to America, and I hope you guys realize how much work that we do that happens below ground. You'll never know where it comes to or where it goes from. But this is something that we have that other people do not have. I meet all kinds of people from all over the world, and they want to be here so bad you can't believe it. Don't believe the lie. We have a dream here, and don't let it get taken.
Boom. Antibacterial properties of silver.
So we talked about a question just came in from our listener, Kurt. Hey, thanks, Kurt, from Sauk County, Wisconsin. Awesome.
Yeah, Reedsburg.
He's right here. He actually mentioned some antibacterial / antimicrobial. Tell us about that, Chris.
I don't know much about that stuff. That one's not my focus, and I know that it's accurate. I know you can get messed up if you don't do it right. You don't want to just drink that stuff or whatever. Like there was a thing called chelation therapy that didn't work out so well.
It's not an internal thing. You got to put it in products to preserve food.
Yep.
And it prevents decay.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Yep. Copper, on the other hand, too, we're finding that it increases vasodilation or circulation. Yep, and it opens up, unrestricts blood pathways, which leads to it's got an anti-inflammatory effect. They're building all kinds of nice knee braces now for
Brett Favre.
And that's what it's all about. It's actually the electronic properties in copper, which are incredibly conductive to electricity. They actually mess with the iron in the blood in a good way. So.
And coming from I'm a hemochrome. You don't know that yet.
No.
I'm a hemochromatosis, so I have an iron disorder. So my body does not let iron go. I attract it like a magnet.
Wow, yeah.
And it
so
rusts
it could become
organs.
toxic to you.
It's very toxic.
Yep.
In fact, I'm a cancer survivor / thriver. But so now I manage it and I teach that part. But that concept of managing heavy metals, I was heavy metal toxic.
Yeah.
Which my thyroid was saving me as a result, which is again back to my school of thought is cancer is not a disease, it's a process.
It's a function.
It's a function of the body.
Yeah, that's
absolutely.
all. Yep.
So, what a great interview, dude.
Let's talk about energy next podcast. You got to hear about energy stuff.
Okay, next time you'll hear that with Chris and I.
Okay, my fellow health warriors, it's time to head over to iTunes, franklyspeakingdrwade.com. There, you can rate, review, and subscribe, as well as share, so more of our brothers and sisters can grow to realize their voice and their health freedom. Speaking up means you matter, so get on it. This podcast is for information purposes only. The statements or views expressed are not medical advice and are not meant to replace the advice of your medical doctor. This podcast, including Dr. Wade Anderson and his guests, disclaim responsibility for any adverse effects you may experience from the specific use of information contained herein. Opinions of guests are their own, and this podcast does not endorse and accept responsibility for statements made by guests. This podcast does not make any representations or warranties about the guest qualifications or credibility. This podcast may contain paid endorsements and advertisements for such services or products. Individuals on this podcast may have direct or indirect financial interest in products or services referred to herein. If you think you have a medical condition, consult your licensed physician.